One. Here we go. Good evening, everyone. Good evening from the FCC. To talk of the 5G and the revolution it can bring to India. We'll have a discussion and interaction with the panelists that I'll introduce. And after, the IT minister will join us for the keynote speech on 5G and data protection. And after that, of the panelists, we have first Mr. Wu, which is from the, of course, the Department of Telecommunication, policy, the sector for quite some time, 30 years in public policy developments and develop program nationally and internationally. Mr. Balaji is the Chief Regulator and Corporate Affairs Officer for Vodafone Idea. Member also of the core leadership team of the company, current vice chairperson of the Cellular Operators Association of India, and chairman of ASOCAM, National Digital Communication Council. Mr. Jadish Mishra, Chief Strategy Officer and Head of Growth in Tech Mahindra, also co-chair of the Science, Technology and Innovation Committee at the Industry Federation of FICCI. We have also Amit Marva, here it is, from Nokia India, where he heads the customer marketing and corporate affairs and responsible for customer and technology marketing. And finally, Arvind Bali, CEO in the Telecom Sector Skill Council, which is a council led by the industry, which created by the industry, but bridge with the government in terms of skills and managing the skill. And so to moderate this evening, Faisal Kanvusa, which is from Tech Arc, a consultant, expert in the matter of tech, well known by the industry leaders, and therefore I'm going to give the floor to you, Faisal, to start this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. And, good evening, everyone. For a change, FCC today means for us Foreign Correspondence Club, otherwise we know it as Federal Communications. And we are here today to talk 5G, and I have 5G SE with me, not the second edition, but the subject experts. So I have 5 great subject experts to talk about 5G. We all know that India is up to the race of $5 trillion economy, and it's now one contributed by the technologies. And I think there are now enough established researches and, so to say, proven data points that suggest that 5G is going to be something critical in overall digital transformation, digital economy, and same is going to happen in India also, where we are going to see 5G going to contribute significantly to this $1 trillion economy, and that's what we are here to discuss about. I would like to start, obviously we love to start with government, so I would like to start with Mr. Kishore Babu to understand, like when we look at 5G as a technology, obviously it's a global technology, but then its adaptation is very, very local. What 5G could mean in USA is not necessarily what it means in India. So in your view, what areas do you see where 5G is going to be very significant for India?
Hope I'm audible. Thank you very much. Very good evening to all of you. It's a very cozy, a kind of grouping together to discuss about what is there for us 5G as an opportunity. And I thank FCC for inviting us you to learn and understand about what are the views and what is happening. The question with regard to the 5G, would it be different in India? Perhaps personally, with regard to technology, as you know, it has to be across the boundaries. So standards and technology is same across the countries wherever you go, because there is a kind of interoperability is required when you go from place to place. But however, when you start using 5G as a technology to meet your domestic requirements, there perhaps there could be differences and flavors from country to country depending on their needs. Uh, to give you a little, a background about between 4G and 5G, if you look at some countries have been using 4G applications maybe for the last decade. But whereas if you look at in India, 4G was more popular for voice and video and data consumption. But when it came to 5G, uh, I mean, perhaps everybody is aware about what is 5G, what are the capabilities, etc. It's now, I mean, one of the buzzwords, I should say, now 5G and 6G. So people say about extreme throughputs, very, very low latencies, and massive devices, etc. So 5G has got certain capabilities inbuilt and suitable for industry verticals. So there is a lot of interest in enterprises and industry about how we can really capitalize, how we can exploit 5G capabilities for different socioeconomic verticals. Yes, because of which, and especially noting down our frugal innovation and the diverse needs and diverse demands in the country. So 5G adoption and as well as 5G application perhaps could be more diverse in the country compared to other countries. But however, most of the use cases across the world they may remain same, but we may be innovating them to meet most of our requirements in the coming months and years. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay, very well start, and as rightly pointed out, 5G is obviously it's the next evolution of mobile communication, but at the same time, it is going to help digital technologies penetrate into the primary and secondary sectors of the economy, agriculture, industrial. That's I think so. So far, it was more services oriented. Uh, Moving on to you, Mr. Balaji, I wanted to understand from you, uh, as Mr. Kishore also said, that it's a lot of enterprise plays there. While as a consumer, I am excited to see when I will go into metaverse and do a lot more funny things out there. But what do you see as an operator? What's there in in 5G for India?
Thank you so much, Faisal. Interesting question, and greetings to all of you in FCC. So I think Mr. Kishore Babu rightly talked about the context in which 5G will be introduced in the country. So clearly, some good work has been done by the industry with the support of the government in the last 12 to 18 months. The first and foremost thing was that the government had actually set up a high-level committee which comprised people in industry, in academia, and from government to make sure that we were preparing as a nation for 5G by collaborating and figuring out what's the best way to get penetration going. And the one thing which came out from that was that there was a need for doing India trials on 5G technology so that we could understand what use cases would be more relevant in India compared to what happens globally. So that was one thing that was a very wise decision taken by the government. And so they gave us trial spectrum even about 8 to 10 months prior to the spectrum auctions itself that happened earlier this year. And working with, partners like Nokia, Amit is here, with the global experiences that Vodafone Group has, Vodafone Idea as a company, we actually set up trials in Ahmedabad and in Pune. And we had some use cases that we actually tried out with Nokia, with Ericsson and others. And these were further developed, and we had recently the India Mobile Congress that we actually showcased them. To give you an idea, some of them, we had, in fact, the Honorable Prime Minister see how 5G can actually help, in improving worker safety. Tunnel environment, difficult terrain, dynamic environment. People can get into trouble if they're not monitored. Using 5G technology, trainer and a supervisor with a visor kind of a device is able to immediately find out where the problem can be, where there can be risks to the workers, and is able to can communicate to them not from a network operation center that you've seen, for the longest time of 20 years, but anywhere, wherever there's 5G, puts a visor, is able to immediately kind of, navigate into that place and say, hello, stop, don't do this, or help a person remotely attend to emergency that might come in a work environment. So this was one very relevant use case that Honorable Prime Minister actually experienced on behalf of the nation when he actually launched 5G. So that was one use case. That has a lot of use in mines, in difficult construction areas, and so on. Then you can look at connected healthcare opportunities that we also showcase. There's opportunity for distance education where you can use 3D rendering as a means to actually use teachers sitting in location A to teach children in less privileged areas of the country in schools that are not as well equipped as you would want them to get good quality education. That's another area. So that's also Faisal talked about primary industry of health of agriculture. So we had a whole smart agri solution that we demonstrated, using which farmers are able to get the latest information on crops, soil, pests, and so on and so forth. Have drones that can actually be operated on 5G in order to make sure that you can actually provide the right amount of pesticides aerially, where it's required, and where it's not needed, you don't waste money. And by doing that, you're able to actually get double the productivity for half the cost. We've actually demonstrated it with about 500,000 farmers that today benefit from 4G, but really 5G would be required to kind of take it to the next level. So I think there are many, many exciting use cases that, to our mind, are driven from the industry, what is called Industry 4.0 or industry verticals. And to our mind, that's really where a lot of innovation, a lot of partnership will happen, a lot of collaboration between government at the center, state, different ministries, industry, technology providers, IT players like Tech Mahindra and others. So all of us will basically collaborate to come up with very unique solutions, which are going to be a little different than what it happens in the rest of the world. So I think very excited about it. But before I end again, I think the Honorable Prime Minister kind of led the whole thing at IMC with the launch. And he's set some massive targets that this nation needs to get to be a 1 trillion digital economy.
Right.
And clearly 5G, 4G, 5G, and future technologies will be a solid foundation for that to happen in India. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So yes, 3G was about connectivity, 4G was about content, and 5G will be about community. So an industry, manufacturing facility is a community. So are other such use cases. So we heard government, we heard operator. Now let's also hear what technology providers have to say. So coming to you, Amit, now we are a 5G nation. So how do you see the progress so far? What is that excites you as a technology provider in India so far? And anything you see differently happening here than because you would have a global view also?
Thanks, Faisal. Okay, let me just do a check here. How many of us understand here what really is 5G? And this is no offense. We've all read about it for the last maybe many, many years. But really, do we understand what is 5G? And what is the difference between whatever is happening today and what 5G is going to do? I'm sure all of you know, but I'll give you a very simple analogy. After this, you will never forget what 5G is. So what was 2G? 2G was a gully or a lane. 3G, a road. 4G, a highway. And 5G, a super highway with 10 lanes. And what these 10 lanes can do now is, the 10 lanes, what they can do right now is that you have a lane which you have soil or a grass where it's a jogger's lane. Then you have a lane where you have a cyclist and only cyclists will run. Then you have a lane which is going to be for the fast cars. Then you have a lane or a track which will have the train running. And then you will have a lane where there will be a platoon of trucks which will be only moving in one direction. And why I'm saying all this is that what 5G can do and what 4G could not do up till now is give you this differential of creating networks within a network, which look at the use case and give you resources in order best suited for that use case. And I think Kishore Babu said about this that there are three things in 5G: massive machine. So it's like, so what is happening is the highway is becoming bigger, so capacity increasing. 5G increases capacity double, triple, 10 times also. Second thing, what 5G does is that because now you have your own lane, you have so many traffic that you have to connect to hundreds and thousands of different types of vehicles. So, which is massive machine to machine. That means you can connect now, every individual or every house will have at least 50 devices connected through the network, which right now are maybe 5 or 7 for us or 10 for us, including our phones, TVs, and whatever is connected. So, this is what the transformation is going to happen in 5G. And lastly is what is called low latency, which means that you imagine now, forget driverless trucks, or just see connected trucks moving one after the other, or connected cars moving one after the other, where the truck in the front is the driver and he's giving a signal to all the trucks at the back that move at this much distance away from me. Now, you can imagine if that signal is not sent properly, then you will have accidents in milliseconds. So that is what latency means. So these are the three things that 5G brings on the table, which is hugely different or a revolution from what up till now technologies have. India, everybody says, are we late? India's maybe, it's already happened in the rest of the world. The answer is no. Technology is mature. Technology is now very, very robust and deployable. So we are not at the right time, because compared to other countries where devices so you have a ready ecosystem, you switch on the network. I actually have 5G now on an iPhone in the beta version though. So yeah, we are ready. India is going to witness the fastest rollout of 5G, which will be at least 3 times faster than what we have seen in 4G compared to anywhere else in the world. So that is what, and the support from the government and the industry is so strong right now that I think this is going to be the biggest success of 5G going forward. So
Thank you, Amit. And not just support, but I can see, passion, and at the same time, I think talking in the same language. I think this is something rare we see happening in tech sector, but provider, everybody talking same. I wanted to move on to you, Mr. Jagdish. Now, you are someone who is already supplying a lot of latest technologies globally as TechM. So help us understand what are we already doing on the global front while 5G in India started just now, but what are the opportunities for India in terms of exporting 5G applications, 5G tools, and other such things?
First of all, thank you, Faisal. Absolutely eminent panel you have here. There's a lot of learning for me personally to hear from them. I think the first question that you asked was the most interesting one. How does 5G get embodied in? Is it the same for 5G in US or in a developed market versus India? And I think it's not. The technology is the same. The applications will all be different. And I think, to me, 5G is the biggest opportunity in technology so far for India to bring what we have typically referred to in India as Bharat and India. So there is, as we know, there is a rural part of India and there is a urban part of India. And we've always said some things are for rural, some things are for urban. Here is a big chance of us to converge both rural and urban together. The reason I'm saying that is to your question of the applications. And we get these discussions many times because as TechM and with all my technology partners, we talked about what we did with Vodafone globally or with other operators. Similarly, with partners like Nokia and others, we've been able to work together many solutions as a system integrator. That's our role. But we see different use cases. An autonomous car in the US or a fast-driven 5G application is to switch on your air conditioner or get your car moving in the streets in a Western country without a driver. Do we need that solution here? Probably not. We have a different requirement for autonomous vehicles to do, maybe to help us with farming, with drones. Maybe it help us to do manufacturing setups and supply chains in unmanned locations and difficult terrains around the world and in the country. And that's where the applications change for us. The reason why I'm highlighting this is that I think the biggest opportunity for India with 5G lies in agriculture. And we have 62% of our workforce in agriculture, but probably a very small contribution to the GDP compared to the workforce productivity. We have a huge opportunity to convert that to be the most profitable segment, even export from here things that we produce at high yield. How will high yield happen? Is by producing smarter networks and being able to deliver productivity to that farmer. But not just that, there is about 20% of the carbon emissions are from agriculture because of the amount of fertilizers that we put in and so on and so forth. Why does that happen? Because we spray and pray. We don't have a ability to figure out where the need is. 5G will enable us to draw out that 20% out of the equation. So you get a double benefit. You get productivity and we attain our sustainability goals. So to me, these are the applications that people like we are extremely excited in Tech Mahindra about. Today, thankfully, because of our focus on telecom, we today are about to reach $1 billion of revenues on system integration just on telecom globally. To your point of what we're doing globally and what has been the learnings, most of the world is moving towards a very software-driven network, a software-driven exercise of drawing up applications because it allows you to do things faster and do it in a plug-and-play model. Our learning has been that we will see an explosion of use cases that will come out of this journey. Like you see a Google Play Store or a Apple Play Store or an App Store has plethora of applications and has made so many businesses come together. 5G in India will spurn a huge amount of startup ecosystem, will spurn new ideas that are getting delivered out of this ecosystem, and a whole opportunity for a country to drive what I think will at least be more than $1 trillion of economy from these applications. That's the big opportunity for software.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for giving this view of 5G and what it means for India. But when we hear, unmanned, hear autonomous, there is always a threat. Okay, what's going to happen to jobs? So we have one of the, distinguished telecom uh, leaders on the panel, Mr. Arvind Bali, who is right now leading the Sector Skill Council for Telecom. So, Mr. Bali, my question to you is, uh, what do you foresee in terms of what is going to be the impact on employment with when 5G really, kicks off in its full capacity?
Thank you. Good evening. First of all, I think I like to echo the same sentiment what Balaji and Amit shared. Uh, Probably this is the first time, I think in my 37, 38 years of career, 15 years in telecom, so much of proactiveness from government, what I've seen, it was never there, right? Here on skilling itself, our secretary telecom, I think, is conducting every month meetings of different stakeholders. We have involved IIT Madras, IIT Delhi, and many organizations like who are working on skilling. Now, why so much of focus is there? Because 5G is more about use cases. And in 5G, ultimately skilling and training is required. How to use this for various technological uses. It can be used for agriculture, as many of my co-panelists have mentioned. It can be used for health. It can be used for education. It can be used for connected vehicles, machine learning, unlimited usage. I think we're already having more than 200 plus use cases, out of which many courses we already have qualification packs prepared. We are training youth on that. So what we have found is that it is going to open a big requirement. Like for example, we did some studies. Uh, First is as far as skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, total opportunity when we see in next 5 years time, close to 25 lakh people need to be reskilled, upskilled in this field because ultimately there is a change from 4G to 5G, as Mr. Amit Marwa has told. It's a very big change which is coming from 4G to 5G. And one of the biggest change what we see is that there'll be a lot of in-building solution, in-building requirements will be there. And for that, a lot of engineers, a lot of technicians will be required who knows how to really place the equipment. Then comes the second requirement, like that is from network point of view, lot of more towers, lot of more fiber, lot of all those things will be required. But then there are multiple use cases, and on all use cases we have to train people. Like drone itself is a thing which ultimately will have big marry with 5G, and there like you need experts to or people to really run that. IoT is again something which is actually will have the biggest jump in usage with 5G coming. So we'll find a lot of IoT cases. So I think overall there's a big requirement of people. So as I said, skilling, reskilling, upskilling is one field. But then when it comes to the real experts, we expect that in 3 years' time we need to have at least 1 lakh uh, technicians, engineers have to be trained specifically on 5G courses, which will be the new jobs, new requirements. And we as Telecom Sector Skill Council, we are setting up lot of center of excellences. Most of, because we are a non-profit organization, we get supported from the industry like Nokia, Ericsson. They all support us with setting up those labs, and we set up those labs with trained youth over there. So that is happening. And plus, preparing all the curriculum, all the digital content, all that work. So we have done that work even before the auction happened. So all that preparedness was very well in advance, thanks to government drive, government initiative, and also industry wanted it. So I think that way we are quite well set as far as scaling is concerned, providing skilled manpower is concerned.
Okay, so that's great. We have a great future coming in, and there are people to take care of it. And so I think we can relax. Coming on to you again, Mr. Babu. While I heard from all the panelists, and this is what we all observed, that government this time took really 5G differently than previous technologies. But help us understand, like spectrum allocation was one of the things that was done in record time. But help us understand, how did government take this technology than its predecessors differently, and what are some of the key benefits out of that?
Thank you very much. Few numbers I want to share with you about why 5G as a technology is going to be very important for the country, not only for socio-economic development, but also for giving a kind of new quality of life, quality of experience, and delivery of services in governance, as well as what you touch any vertical. They say that there's going to be impact on 5G, impact from 5G, because it is being perceived something like a general purpose technology. Like, for example, today when we see electricity, it is part of everything and anything what we use. Similarly, 5G, because of its capabilities, like for example, I don't know, maybe it is a similarity or coincidence, the way we are having 5 senses, except for smell as well as a taste. I think everything else, 5G is going to reduce the distance and experience what we are going to get from 5G based on the trials, based on the use cases what they are working on. So if you look at the India as a country, India as a economic giant, we are having almost like 230,000 plus factories, 230,000 plus factories, and 3,000 plus mining licenses, and 130 plus airports, and 13 major ports, and 200 minor and intermediate ports, and 151,000 kilometers of national highway. 151,000 kilometers, and almost like 160 million hectares of agriculture land. As some of you mentioned about importance of agriculture and highest labor, involvement in the agriculture, and almost like 7,500 kilometers of coastal line. And adding to this, because of the competencies India has demonstrated in software services as well as in the emerging technologies, we have almost like a 220 billion plus software industry, which has demonstrated its proficiencies across the world in its, you name any software service, yes, there is a, India's stamp, India's footprint in contributing to the global development. Adding to this, we have got almost like 10,000 plus tech startups. All together, people can say that, the recipe is, the very timely and window of opportunity is growing for India to contribute in a big way in 5G technology adoption, 5G technology development, as well as making innovative, frugal use cases for domestic as well as global markets. Taking note of this as the opportunity, what government has done, it has taken few steps, very much in advance. Like some of you mentioned about the trials, which gave an opportunity for the operators to explore and dimension as well as try what is this 5G network rollout is going to be. Sometime in 2019, India came out with a policy called, making spectrum very easily available and liberal framework for R&D, demonstration, as well as for manufacturing in indoors. Perhaps it is denoted as one of the world's best spectrum enabling policy from the country. With 5,000 rupees, I can say $65 a year. Through self-declaration, you can get spectrum for R&D in your organization. With just $65 a year, you can get spectrum license for your R&D just through self-declaration. That actually has triggered a lot of wireless technology companies, as well as whoever is wanting to establish test beds in their premises, like operators as well as OEMs, technology companies, academic institutions. Actually, last 1 year I have seen, I think more than 500 entities have taken this R&D spectrum license to make use of it for developing 5G technologies as well as developing use cases. That is one of the first enabling policies what government has rolled out to trigger in the development of technology as well as use case. Second, government also has enabled and funded almost like 220 plus crore to develop something called indigenous 5G testbed, where a lot of 8 academic and as well as education institutions have been involved to bring out something called end-to-end indigenous 5G testbed, which enabled people to develop their technologies where they can go plug in, test their technology as well as test their use cases. Why I'm specifically mentioning about this test bed about driven by academic consortium. If you look, there are a lot of competence demonstrated, but this is the first time where five G test bed and in this year, which in triggering as well as is adding to this what the department has of service providers. I can I call it as a 5G gang because all together country needs for the services meeting between health services. 5G is going to play. That's the reason it is well galvanize all the stakeholders. As I mentioned, telecom service providers, OEMs, the indigenous small companies bring in innovative businesses to for use cases
a very, very uh, things happening at really from the government state. I would say already commercial, a pre-commercial stage. So my next question I wanted, you know, that could speed up commercialization.
And I think
PLI two of that scheme and let go of the incentive for 1 year because 2.0 was even more interesting and the volume case in India is increasing so much. To let go of 1 year, start for PLI 2.0 and they are part of PLI, which means that we are investing more, we are adding more lines, and we are adding more products. So I think manufacturing is in India across the sectors, but definitely in telecom, and this is the time. The only challenge right now is availability of fab conductors because 80% or 60%
to train them. And the most important part, what is happening is skill ministry as well as our telecom department. What they are doing is high-tech and which are absolutely required today. So industry wants people, industry needs people today. So they should be proactively trained. And that is what we are doing in skill ecosystem. That is what is happening today.
Sure. Thank you. Welcoming you, Honorable Minister for State, for electronics, IT, and skill development. We are really privileged to have you, sir, here. I'm sorry that we are short of time. Honorable Minister is already here. I know you had questions, so I will request you to, we'll be taking them after. So may I request Honorable Minister to come on the stage and address on the topic 5G catalyst for India's $1 trillion digital challenges.
So good evening all. Spent a lot of time evangelizing technology must contribute to the expansion of opportunities and expansion, therefore, of the economy and expansion of the digital economy. And the third thing he said was that our efforts in digital India must end up with India having deep, lasting, sustainable capabilities in tech. And that was specifically relevant to consumers of technology. I was a telecom entrepreneur at one point in the mid 90s and the late 90s. And I recall that when I built the first networks in India, everything, including the screw and the screwdriver, were imported. And that model sort of continued for several decades. And all the way to 2G, 3G, and 4G, most of the network gear, them from the Nokias, the Ericssons, the Siemens, the Motorola's of the world, as they merged, as they changed, as they transformed. So that is essentially the backstory to when we talk about 2022, when we talk about 5G, when we talk about the $1 trillion digital economy, when we talk about our innovation ecosystem. I describe 5G very simply as this. It is the fifth generation, and therefore, Thomas tells you 5 is greater than 4, 4 is greater than 3, 3 is greater than 2, and therefore 5G must be better than 4G. Fair enough. That's a safe assumption to make. What is better? It is faster, it's latency is lower, it does more in terms of bandwidth. So all of that is true. But 5G is also in a lot of ways the first generation of machine to machine communication. It transforms the internet in ways that we don't see, we have not envisaged, we haven't imagined in the world before 5G, 4G, 3G, 2G, the broadband, fixed wireless, all of that. Because suddenly, with the proliferation of 5G, we have the participants in the internet going from millions of individuals with devices, hundreds and millions of elements that are going to be on the internet, collecting data, collecting information, sending out data, sending out information, communication, sensing. And then when you overlay that with artificial intelligence and all of that and learning, you have decision making that are being undertaken by data and information that are coming at the internet from hundreds and millions of places rather than just an individual behind an intelligent device. So to that extent, 5G is the fifth generation peer-to-peer person communication, and therefore it will have all the additional bells and whistles that you expect. But it is also going to be deeply transforming the internet. And from there, you can safely assume that the use cases of 5G and use cases of the internet as we knew it will suddenly again explode and proliferate. So in areas where it was not clear or not intuitive that the internet would be presence, agriculture, education, health, all of these areas and many more that we don't even today know of or can't imagine. 5G and the related use cases and applications and technologies that sit on the network will create a deep, very vibrant ecosystem. 5G is not just about saying that we will get a lot more people with faster devices and faster internet. So that entire innovation ecosystem that is waiting to explode. That all of these applications, all of these technologies, all of these use cases translated into applications are waiting to be innovated. And the other big thing for India in the evolution of these technologies is 5G also represents, for the first time, the departure of network gear or network topology and architecture from proprietary black boxes that are owned by Nokia R&D or Siemens R&D or Ericsson R&D as the case may be, to more and more open networks where open pieces of gear with virtualized networks can be the underlying technology, underlying network architecture. And in that, for the first time, India can legitimately aspire, and Indian entrepreneurship and Indian innovators can legitimately aspire to moving from being technology consumers, which was the case for the last 3 decades and the last 4 generations of technology, to develop the next wave of innovation and the platforms and the network gear for 5G and 6G. I will, of course, you have many experts here who earn their living and bread and butter and pay the bills by deploying networks and providing service. So I can't add very much more to what they have already shared with you, excepting to say I think in the area of telecom and the area of internet, we are at an inflection point and we are entering probably one of the most exciting phases of innovation in the network and innovation around the network, innovation around the internet. I was also asked to speak a little bit about data privacy, and I suspect that is a flavor of the week or flavor of the month. We have recently put out a new digital personal data protection bill for public consultation. And this is a pretty significant departure from what was the formulation, what was the design and architecture of the bill prior to this. Simple, it allowed the rights of the Indian citizen. It lays out the obligations of all platforms that are operating in India and want to provide services or products to the Indian citizen and seek data from that Indian citizen in return. And it provides for a very simple, foolproof adjudication process in the event there is a breach of that data or breach of the agreement or obligations of the data, the platform. It does not pretend to appoint a regulator and create a regulator for the data ecosystem. That is down the road when we create a new bill called the Digital India Act. This is a bill that is very narrowly focused on data protection for our consumers, and it achieves, in my humble opinion, I have a role in developing that bill, so this is a little immodest on my part to say, but I will say it anyway, that we have achieved the seemingly contradictory objectives of preventing misuse by technology platforms of consumer data, protecting consumer data, and assuring that the citizens' right to data protection is achieved, creating a compliance unintensive, non-intensive framework for people wanting to do business in India in the data space, of innovators and startups in the data space. And the third, providing for very codified access of the government to personal data in the case of law enforcement agency requirements, national security, pandemics. So that is where the bill is today. It is open for consultation. When in 2010, I was a petitioner in the Supreme Court seeking privacy as a fundamental right. I was met with derision and people saying, what is privacy and why is privacy so important? It is an elitist concept. 12 years later, I'm pleased to report that everybody in India has a view on it. Some informed, some not so informed, and everybody wants to be part of that debate. I welcome that. But I only encourage the debate to be informed debates rather than characterizations of overreach and so on and so forth, which are based on more paranoia rather than the facts. I will leave it at that, and I'm quite happy to take any questions and have a conversation with you on both these subjects as the case may be. Thank you. Jai Hind.
So we're going to open the floor for questions that we mentioned, 5G and digital protection. So who wants to start? Do we have a second mic? Yeah.
Good evening to all of you. I have known Rajiv when you were a member of parliament and you were really not a minister, and also as a business entrepreneur many years back when I was in Doordarshan. Just to begin with, I mean, it's a very common man's question, more of the executive talk. But two things I mean, what you guys have talked is very highly technical, Many things I have not understood also. But I want to know, for a common user, like a common user, would this 5G technology be very complicated? And again, as Rajiv Chandrasekhar mentioned, that what about the data privacy? In fact, your case in the Supreme Court, which was decided by now the Chief Justice Chandrachud, now right to privacy is a law.
Be a very simple use of how it can actually impact their lives, whether it's by way of getting them access to quality healthcare or quality education. And that's why I think a year and a half back, when the government actually progressively took a progressive step to give us spectrum ahead of time as operators to actually test out use cases which make it simple for people to get onboarded, and we deal with the complexity. I think that's been a very good learning experience for everybody. And to give a simple answer, yes, it'll be very simple for the consumers, users.
Maybe if I can add, simple, I agree, but it is creating new use cases. So let me give you an example. We had the pandemic. In the pandemic, all of us learned how to shop at home. We learned how to work from home. We learned how to use and communicate. So all those things to a lot of us were not known. So what 5G will also do is it will enable a number of use cases. For instance, right now when we play a game on the phone, we are playing a game which is downloaded onto the phone. Then in 5G, maybe I can play the game with all of you together on a network in real time and get a much better experience, which is three-dimensional. Cars will be connected, will come default with a connected appliance. If you buy a fridge, you buy an AC, it will automatically come with a connected thing. What you will be able to do is that in one app, you will probably be able to see and monitor your whole house and see maybe when you are going to enter the house, switch on your AC, switch off your lights, do IoT in that sense. I'm giving you a very simple example. And this gets expanded multifolds when you take it to industries, when you take it to manufacturing, when you take it to mining and smart cities and see the use cases from it. So it's not going to be difficult, but it will evolve and all of us it will become a way of life for us.
Your experience, for example, that you see today on some of the digital stuff that goes on. Simple example is when you today you step out and go and buy in Delhi, if you're looking for a pani puri, which is one of the most favorite savories in our time, and we go step out, you go to a thelawala and you can pay him through a payment mechanism, which is our digital payment. There's no complexity. He doesn't require anything. He puts a barcode in front. You scan your barcode through the phone and pay it. The technology complexity, like Balaji said, is at the back end. That's what our job is, to make it. Any technology that gets adopted is only because it's simplicity, and same will be for 5G. So I think the way to look at it is that it is much enhanced experience that you'll deliver because of the technology rather than the complexity. The more simpler it will get.
Go ahead.
I'll just answer that question for you on behalf of all this. It's not going to impact you as a consumer. You will just see that you have a better service. You have the ability to do more on your device than you had when you were using a 4G device. As simple as that. On privacy, yes, 5G does represent, like I said, it increases the complexity of the internet. And there are clearly going to be many more challenges in terms of data protection, especially when sensors are collecting the data. Who's the owner of that data? Who owns the sensor? There are many questions that will now come from what I described to you as the first generation of machine-to-machine networks. So those are areas that we have thought through when we have drafted the bill.
Okay. My name is Narayanan, and I work for German television ARD network. I'm not really interested in driverless cars in India.
Okay.
The thing is that in the 4G network, we have enough opportunity to implement a lot of things in the two sectors, specifically like education and health. So the templates were not equipped to handle this 4Gs in these two sectors, specifically I'm mentioning. So how is it going to be different if I come up with a better technology? Because the basic templates are same, especially in the health and the education sector. So what is that you have to change in the basic back end of these two sectors?
No, I should allow you guys to speak, no?
So as you mentioned, the two sectors, education and health, which are very, very important sectors. You have seen in pandemic how the learning from distance, working from distance, it has altered altogether how our learning process can transform depending on the need. All the pandemic time we have used only 4G. Now with 5G, it's going to be more new tools. Maybe it could be AR, it could be VR. In fact, for her, I want to add one, I want to add some response to her question, how simple it is going to be. In Drone Mahotsav, which was an event which was held few months back, I have seen a bike with a bag. There is a box which carries the drone in rural areas. You have seen in a pizza carrying boy who will be bringing pizzas in the bag box. Like that, there is an innovation on a bike. He carries in a box drone. He goes to farmers, village to village, to spray the pesticides, fertilizer wherever it is required. So the 5G as a technology is going to bring in a lot of new innovative business models, especially creating a lot of new stream of jobs, which anyway facilitates for the user at the end. Could be a farmer, it could be a kind of mining person who is in the deep mines. He's going to be serviced, but for him there's not going to be difference or challenge in the technology. New models will develop how the service can be delivered with ease and grace, so that he gets the impact, not complexity of the technology.
So just one point, when you talk about education, and this just came to my mind, the difference is during COVID, I read one statistic saying that only 8% of rural students were able to do education in spite of all the online things that we saw and we learned. So this can change with 5G. Why? Because to get to a rural location with a internet connection or a good robust connection, you either need fiber or you need cable or you need microwave unit. I'm not going into technology again. You need to set up a huge network. What 5G can do is, one of the big applications of 5G which is working in the world is called fixed wireless access, which means that you will have a box which will have a SIM card. Only the air network it catches and it gives you almost fiber-like speed. Imagine if you can have that kind of a speed through a wireless connection in a village, how the village can be transformed with connectivity, much better connectivity.
Question from John Reed in the Financial Times right here. Thanks for the excellent presentation. I was curious about the national security aspect of this new technology, and maybe it's a question mostly for government, not only, but also for the tech companies. How did the operators develop this technology? Not you, I guess you're not the operator, Nokia, but did they buy it off the shelf? Did they develop it themselves? Did India actively avoid working with Huawei? I can ask this because I'm new to India and I didn't cover it as a running story. And then I think you made reference to checking out all of the Chinese phones that are, I guess, 5G equipped phones coming into India. Are there precautions being taken on that, or on the Internet of Things with all these Chinese appliances, which are going to continue coming into India? Thanks.
You want to take the government one first?
What is the government one? What is the government question, John?
About national security.
Can I
No,
add
he's
another
talking about
supplement?
You people buying the equipment.
To the minister,
Yeah.
because the cyber security aspect of it falls under electronics department, so that you have the trusted source certification, which is in a way affecting the many of the operators. And when it comes to 5G with many equipments coming in, how is it going to play up? Because this trusted source can be very different to different equipments and other things.
What is the question?
The question is, how does it trusted source certification going to play in the 5G segment?
So let me be very clear and unambiguous. Our networks in India, the government prescribes that the network gear will be from trusted sources as certified by the relevant parts of the government on that issue. So there is absolutely no ambiguity on the fact that the networks that we build today and in the future will be built on gear that is either made in India, designed in India, and or gear that is imported from trusted sources. So it is what it is.
On the overall security of information and data, speaking on behalf of Vodafone Idea, Vodafone Group, and a company, very clear that it's security by design. That's how we start the whole, whether it's network, whether it's IT, the amount of effort that goes in to make sure that our networks are safe, our consumer data is safe, our network data is safe, and frankly, that's something which we definitely pride ourselves in. The other thing is, in this government, as the minister was saying, there is a very close cooperation that happens between the agencies that monitor threats and the operators. And it's a very seamless, interaction where if we find something which is coming our way, we point it in their direction, so that everybody gets alert. Likewise, if they find something that's happening, they inform our CIO, and it's taken very seriously. So therefore, it's a very good closed loop that I have seen, which basically keeps the operator network safe.
So, John, to your question about, I think, the development of the software and the ingredients here, a large amount of it is, as the minister also referred to, today's world has changed. So, people like us, like in Tech Mahindra or our peer groups in TCS or Infosys, we've developed software for others. Now we are developing software which are products and solutions with partners like Nokia's of the world, or even indigenously developed software here. So, a large part of it is sometimes built on open source software, which is at the base of it, which can develop and build applications around it. The fact that a large amount of that stack that will go into 5G in India will be developed in India.
But let me correct. There is a body which is called BGPP, which is a global body of standardization who makes standards for 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and 6G going forward. So India is not doing something by creating or recreating that standardization. Whatever is developed, we are trying to use that to create products in India or buy from sources which are already using those 3G.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ratnajyoti. My question is how cost effective 5G would be to the end consumer? And I have one more question. How does 5G would benefit agriculture sector? More specifically in crop estimation, and also raise overall productivity in agriculture sector? Will it lead to digital based second green revolution?
I can briefly answer the question on agriculture. We are actually deploying smart agri solutions. We have been able to impact the lives of 500,000 farmers already, small size farmers. What it does is today 4G and tomorrow 5G, it basically makes sure that the size asymmetry doesn't come in the way of improving productivity for them. Production and their incomes have gone up double. Their investment has come down by half, only because timely information gets to them. And again, there's a lot of data which is collected, a lot of processing that happens behind the scene in the cloud, to your earlier question. But all they get is information on time by way of messages or on an app or through calling up a call center. And that is all they need to basically make this happen for them. So, and giving them timely information on soil, weather, climate, making forecasts before time so they can actually plan for that, to ensure that if there is pestilence, is it for real or is it just a swarm of locusts that's going over the thing so that you don't end up actually spraying more insecticide than required. So very practical things that we worked with the farmers, with partners that are in that space, experts, to create very simple solutions using technology.
And just to add to it, I think I spoke about it when I was doing my opening remarks. There's precision agriculture, and we know 62%, as we said, a large amount of our population is involved in agriculture. Here is an opportunity for India to do two things better than what it's done before and really be at a global level. One is productivity in agriculture, and second is in manufacturing. Because your question is on agriculture, I think the big opportunity is not just in improving productivity by doing precision agriculture, using IoT, using industrial IoT to drive and use exactly what kind of soil and what kind of temperature and water and whatever is required in that. And also one key advantage is reducing the carbon emissions that happen because of some of the fertilizers that go on unplanned. So there's about 20% reduction that's expected because of proper deployment of 5G in agriculture. So it actually, to us, solves two goals at one go, if deployed right.
Hi. Hi. Yep.
Good evening, Sean Gleason from AFP. My question's to Mr. Mara and Mr. Mitchell. Supply chain considerations for the 5G rollout, specifically semiconductors, which there's been numerous supply chain issues globally since the pandemic. There's been production halts on consumer goods, for example. I know India is trying to build up its indigenous manufacturing capacity for semiconductors. But Mr. Marwa, you mentioned that we could expect the world's fastest rollout for India's 5G network. Do either of you foresee any potential disruptions or problems otherwise from the lack of availability of semiconductors in the rollout?
So, I would be wrong if I say that there is no supply chain problem. The problem still exists, and the problem will remain for some more time. Yes, it has eased off, and it has become better than what it was 1 year back. Having said that, like I said, a lot of manufacturing of whatever is being supplied and installed in India for creating 5G networks is now happening within the country. So whether it's us or the others like us who are supplying most of the 5G gear is being manufactured. We as a company and other companies also see that the potential and volume in India is extremely, and actually we anticipated this already coming because we knew the auction was going to happen and we knew the rollouts were going to happen. So a lot of planning has already gone. So to your question, I think there is enough that we have done in order to secure that material will be available in India, which can be installed to make India have the 5G, fastest rollout of 5G in the world.
Can I?
No, I was just saying, to add to Amit's point, is that the semiconductor problem that we are trying to solve is not a short problem. It's a longer problem which requires much deeper engagement, which is what the government, I think, has shown by putting together the policy around it. It will not get solved overnight. It will take time to create fabs. It doesn't get done overnight. And therefore, the time it takes, it will take. But the fact that we are now sort of seeing these things coming together, and we'll start to see a complete ecosystem develop in India, is the direction that we see extremely encouraged about. The software capability, the hardware capability, and the electronics capability all coming together.
Sorry, I wonder if the minister would have something to add.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to put this out for you to understand. When we talk about semiconductor supply chain disruptions, there is almost an assumption that semiconductor supplies were disrupted and therefore fewer semiconductors supplied, which is not the fact. What has happened is semiconductor production actually grew by 13% last year. But the demand post-COVID, because of the accelerated pace of digitization and demand for digital products, has been outpacing the supply of semiconductors. So it is in a sense a myth or a fallacy to believe that there have been some temporary disruptions on semiconductor. What has happened is a permanent increase in the demand of digital products and services and the pace of digitization. And the numbers are out there. If you just calculate the production and the volumes, you will see that 22 over 21 represented a 13% growth in semiconductor volumes. So what we are seeing today is an almost irreversible digitization intensity trend. And things like 5G and the proliferation of IoTs into agriculture, education, health, and these huge mini ecosystems that are going to develop around the core network are going to only increase the demand of semiconductors. And then on top of it, if that wasn't challenging enough, then you have the digitization of the automobile. You have more and more silicon going into cars. And so therefore, this digitization of our ecosystem is today at an unprecedented pace.
Pallav Bagla, I'm a science and technology journalist, and the question is to the minister. I don't quite understand. You're giving me 10 to 20 times slower speed on 5G. I'm used to 200, 300, 800 speeds, and you're creating a hype about it. I mean, what are we celebrating? That's the first question to you. The second question to you is, there's also the hype around satellite-based internet connectivity, especially after the OneWeb launch. So is the government also excited about this satellite-based internet? And the last question, and probably which is the most newsy one, can you tell us, in all of this hype, the biggest hospital of the country, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, had a ransomware attack thanks to the server that's controlled by the National Informatics Center, and the whole hospital went down. I mean, this is bizarre.
So you're determined to make this a difficult evening for me. But anyway, here's the this is a tame compared to what I have to deal with. Look, the rated performance and the design capabilities of 5G versus what operators give you is an issue that you should take up with the operators, the TSPs, the telecom companies. It is clear that 5G is a far superior technology, and when architected and designed well, will give you throughputs, bandwidths that are far superior to 4G. Now, if your service provider is not doing that and is giving you an inferior service, my suggestion is please call up their call center, call their customer relationship manager, and give them the mouthful that you just gave me. Second is on the issue of look, satellite connectivity. Am I excited about it? Of course, I'm excited about it, and I'll tell you why. It is our mission in the government to make sure that every Indian is connected to the net. We want 1.3 billion Indians to be hooked up to the net. We want India to become the largest connected nation in the world. And there are clearly areas where traditional wireless and traditional broadband will not reach. And therefore, satellite is part of the mix, whether it is OneWeb or Starlink or anybody. Satellite connectivity is a fallback, is a plan B. It is a internet in areas where no other technology can go type of a solution, and it is absolutely very essential in a country as diverse and vast and remote, with so many remote communities as India, that satellite is part of the mix. And yes, I confirm to you that I am excited, not necessarily party to the hype, but I am excited about satellite internet. On the third, on ransomware. Now, ransomware is neither a unique phenomenon to India, nor is it going to be the first ransomware attack. These are issues. There are very sophisticated games that are being played on the site on the internet. I never stopped saying that the internet for many years, and I was involved at the early stages of the internet, and we all lived in this utopia that the internet was a force for good, and people will hug each other and message each other, and we will live happily ever after. And the last 5 years have shown that there is considerable criminality, there is user harm, there is a whole world of harm and evil and criminality that exists on the internet. And governments and institutions are playing catch up in that to a large extent. So notwithstanding your dislike for NIC, I can assure you there are a very hard working bunch of people out there who take every breach and every obligation of data management or indeed managing a system very, very seriously. But like they say in terrorism, we have to be right all the time, and it takes the bad guys only one time to be right for them to get through and breach the defenses that we have. But that does not in any way indicate that we don't have defenses, that we are not doing our job, or the NIC is not doing their job. There are many smart people. We believe we are smart people, but there are smart people who are out there to prove every day that they are smart.
Hi, this is Jerry Shee with the Washington Post. I have a question for you, Mr. Minister. So we've so far at this event, we've talked a lot about the use cases of 5G, and my question was about what is the policy vision in terms of 5G gear manufacturing for India, and if that exists, because obviously, many of the tech powers in the U.S. and in Europe, they have their own sort of major players, right? And China as well. You have Cisco, you have Ericsson, you have Huawei and ZTE. As John had said earlier, there are national security concerns of sort of not having your own makers. So is that something that you think the government will promote, and when and how could we potentially see, I guess, a competitor out of Chennai or Bangalore competing with Amit's Nokia?
So the answer to that question is simple. One word answer is yes. That is clearly something that we are doing. We see, and look, I don't want to bore you with the like a technology gyan today, but networks are increasingly going to be built on open systems as virtualized networks that run on essentially, whether you call it open source systems or open systems, and there are going to be fewer and fewer pieces in the network that are going to be proprietary black boxes. So the world of, let us say, so when you say Cisco, you can have any router in the network, and it could be it's a router. It's not like a switch in the early days of 4G or 3G that we thought of as a proprietary technology from Nokia or Siemens. That is the direction in which the world is going and networks are going. That plays to our strength because a large part of the development teams of Open RAN for Qualcomm or many other providers are designed in Bangalore or Hyderabad. So if you take a call that the future of networks is going to be more virtualized networks, more of these kind of open networks, softwareized networks, then you will find that it is not necessary to have a Cisco as a headline name or a Huawei or a Nokia as a name to be designing that future network. Number one. Number two, yes, there are companies like Tejas Networks, there are companies like Sankya Networks that are all today at different pieces of the ecosystem of the network gear. And it is clearly our objective and goal that there will be more Tejas networks, there will be more Sankya networks, and 6G, for example, will be more and more India design gear, India made gear, which is not to say this is going to be a protectionist network like China is, or that we create this artificial island of subpar performance. It will be global standard performance networks. And into the mix, if finally Ericsson and Cisco equipment have to be brought in, they will be brought in. But clearly, they will be from trusted geographies, trusted countries, trusted sources.
Yeah, Minister, this is Raghavendra Varma from ZDF German television. Yeah. You just mentioned about the government catching up with the technology, and now we are going to have a real leap in technology as we hear. So has the government, along with the stakeholders, already preparing for, as you said, there are criminal minds and there are smarter people doing that. So anticipating, there must be some criminals who would be anticipating how to. So is the government also trying to do already a countermeasure planning stage at least, or what should be done and how it should be done?
Our policy making around the internet is guided by three boundary conditions or three principles: openness, safety and trust, and accountability. These three words, phrases guide us on everything we do. Safety and trust is an obligation that we take seriously because if there are 1.2 billion Indians online and they are youngsters who use the internet for studying, there are women who use the internet for a multitude of purposes, elderly people who use the internet, it is an absolute duty on our part to make sure that they use the internet as a safe and trusted place. So safety is an absolute important area for us to be focused on. Without telling you too much, I can tell you that the capabilities that we have in terms of situational awareness of the internet, where bad things happen, where bad things are coming from, where bad people live, where bad people do bad things, is significant. I can't tell you more than that, but our capabilities are not, flying blind, or like for people who are pilots, we are not flying VFR and IFR weather. We know we have our instruments, we know where to look for what to look. But like I said, there are some that get through the breaches and they do what they have to do, and we have the ability to forensically get back and see where they came from. Be like we are ahead of them, the bad guys, for a little while, then the bad guys get ahead of you a little while bit. This is not a game that ever has a endpoint. It's a constant struggle to remain ahead of the bad guys, and like the story should always end with the good guys winning. So I hope we will have the good guys win eventually, every time.
Cyber and other crime are increasing. By giving the connection, why don't there is much awareness for the users on the part of the internet connection given on the part of the responsibility?
No, I think that we do a lot of that. We create a lot of cybersecurity awareness programs. We do cyber swachhata workshops. There is a lot that we do, but eventually, finally, it is for service providers, platforms who we don't have. As you know, the government has very few customers. Most of the consumers who connect with the government are connecting behind a platform. So the platform managers, the platform management have a job to do of educating people about the do's and don'ts, and we do it. The government does it. I think.
Excuse me. We'll take the last question and we'll wrap up on this. We'll take the last question, Sanjay, and after we'll wrap it.
My question is, we are all gung-ho about utopian UX from the 5G and all that. What are you going to do to improve the current connectivity, call drops, and the 4G and 3G connections?
I will hand over that mic to those who should answer that question. If you Google my battles with the telecom operator, just Google it when I was an MP. You'll get a good sense of what my views are on that.
No. I think it's a little bit more involved than that. So for one thing, we take our network seriously. You must look back 2 years that you were in the pandemic to be grateful for the network warriors that actually put their lives at risk in order to make sure all of us could stay connected. When the traffic moved from offices to homes overnight, they did what had to be done to basically ensure that happened. Yeah? So I'm just saying it not from a position of being immodest, but just to put the facts out there. Okay. That said, there are concerns that people do have. There are many people that have misguided views of what can happen with telecom towers around their vicinity, and that often means that in many uh, often affluent places in the country as well, people don't give us site access. Right. That's an issue that's understood by the industry. That's an issue that's understood by the government. We're working together to make sure that they are aware of what it takes, that there is no risk to people or to health, but that you need to have more towers and more sites available in order to ensure that you have good quality networks. I'm just kind of saying that it is a little bit more than just saying the networks. There are measures that are very objective, and they're also based on feedback from customers in order to deal with network issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are you thinking of giving some sort of relaxations to organizations which can justify its proper legal use?
To be honest, I wasn't thinking of it before you asked me, and frankly, I don't know the background of this, so I shouldn't even pretend to answer that. If there is somebody who wants to give me a note, I can ask the right people. I'm quite happy to come back with what their response is, but it's not in my job description.
That's one of the questions that will continue at the reception. We'll have a reception. I think we want to keep everyone. We'll have just a small memento to give as a thank for everyone to come here. So the minister first, of course. Minister, thank you very much for.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for making the time. Well,
Thank you.
Please, sir.
Thanks.
Very patient. Thank you very much. Very nice to come here.